All right, good evening, everybody. And for all those who will be joining for replays, my name is Courtland Smith. I run White Wolf Holistics. I'm a licensed massage therapist and a minister here. I've taken all the sound energy dynamics classes, so I do a lot of the tuning fork work. Tonight we are going to get into intentions and goal setting and helping to get out of the daily mental rut. Where I pull a lot of this from is in my daily practice of specialized kinesiology, where intention and goal setting is a big part of how the balances go. So with the specialized kinesiology, we're working with the meridian system, just like acupuncture does, with muscle testing. And when you do balances, the goal is so important to how you get to kind of the right log in the log jam of whatever your daily life is going through. You could pick something more surface level. It might not be the right log, but if you kind of really hone in on the right log and you pull that out, it can kind of let everything else go. Sometimes you got to keep going with it to get to that right spot. So back up just a little bit. With intentions and goal setting and the daily rut of how we think and our inner voice and our inner language, using the same practice that I help clients with trying to find the goal or their intention is a great daily practice for helping retrain your mind. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows, what you think about the most is most prominent. All the analogies, all the metaphors that go along with that. It's like if you're looking around the room for everything that's blue, you're going to take notice of everything that's blue, but what about all the stuff that was red? So that's an easy exercise just to see how applicable your focus is. All right, so for a few examples, when I'm working with clients, one of the first things we talk about is kind of why are you coming in, what's going on, and let's say it's knee pain. Okay, I was like, well, what do you want? I don't want to have knee pain. Well, that's not a very good goal to have no knee pain because the brain doesn't really hear the no, but you're still balancing for knee pain. What would life be like if you didn't have the knee pain? Let's do a 180 flip. Oh, well, I don't know. They want to have no knee pain, but it's hard to imagine life without the knee pain. So how can we get to a spot that you can't even imagine, or one can't imagine? It's like trying to drive down the road and you're only focusing 2 to 4 feet in front of you. That doesn't work out so well. It's much better to have the long-range vision, goal, and then it makes driving a lot easier. You're making little adjustments. You're not sitting there staring over the steering wheel with wide eyes. Okay, so let's go back to the knee analogy, or the knee type of questionnaire. Okay, so what, if they can't imagine what it's like, or put words to it for like what life would be like without the knee pain, I was like, well, what would that give you if you didn't have that problem anymore? Oh, Well, I could walk. I could go for my walks again. I could take my dog out for a walk. Oh, does that increase your quality of life? Does that help you feel pretty good? Yeah. It's like, would it give you anything else? Oh, I can go shopping and not, I can do all my errands without it hurting. And then you kind of start to build that scenario so that it's easier for them to imagine life better, to help release that sandbag of that knee pain, rather than just constantly thinking about knee pain, knee pain, knee pain, knee pain. Then it becomes ingrained for knee pain. That's all they're going to notice. That's all they're going to hear. Okay, so that's like a general one for pain. But it's amazing if you can get out of that state and change your frequency and change your state by imagining and putting yourself in a position of what it's like for what you really want. The hard part is figuring out, what do you really want? Let's do something more emotional. Let's do an emotion. Anger. Anger is usually one of the first emotions that kind of come up. It's a driver. It's a motivator. I like pain. Pain is a motivator to change. One person, it's I'm just so angry. I'm just so angry about this, and I can just feel my shoulders, and I'm all tense. All tense. And I just feel it. It makes my heart pump, and I just can't see straight anymore. You know, just when the anger takes hold, it's all consuming. Okay, same thing. What do you want? Is there anything you want? You're not to be angry anymore. It's usually the first thing. It's a hard thing to think of. What do you really want? And then the easiest way is like, what's the 180? What is the direct 180 of whatever you're going through? Oh, emotions are a little bit harder, because it's like, what is that going to be for them? Is that going to be calm? Is that going to be peaceful? Is that happiness or joy? The most important part is it has to be their own words. So if you're doing this exercise for you, it's a lot easier, because it's you working through. And it's like, if you ever feel stuck, okay, what's the opposite? It's so easy for our brain to focus on the negative, because that's a survival mechanism. Survival mechanism meant to protect us. So we're always concentrating on, where's the lion, where's my next meal coming from? You know, it's all survival type instincts. So to make it branch out and think of positive things, a little different. So back to anger. Okay, let's say, oh, I'd be happy. What would you be happy about? Or what would be something that you would get from being happy? Oh, it'd be a lot easier to be home. It'd be a lot easier to be around my kids, or something about relationships, or I would have an easier time at work, or I'd have an easier time just being by myself. Those are all things that come up. So with that, it's like, okay, and then once again, you build the scene. You build the scene of where the happiness is going to get you. And then all right, now you have happiness. You're in that state, you have happiness. What would that give you if you're already happy? What's beyond that? What would happiness give you? And then you keep going. You keep going until you hit a wall. And beyond that wall, beyond that friction point is where the real magic is. It's kind of like the thing that's been the diamond in the rough. It's that wonderful thing. That's the long range. You keep going and going and going, and then that's where the magic little nugget is. That really is like that fine-tuned marker way down the road. Okay, so let's do happy. Oh, if I was happy and this was kind of like my regular way of being, man, I'd feel so calm. That'd be pretty cool, feeling that calm. As like, what situations do you think that would be most beneficial for you in, or that you would really see like a huge benefit for being calm? Oh, that would definitely be easier in my relationships. Okay, cool. So what if you were calm in your relationships and that was your state right now? Oh, well, that'd be a lot of freedom. Freedom. Okay, a particular kind of freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of kind of those nagging thoughts in the back of my mind. What about, so you can kind of start to see how this continues with figuring out what do you want. We started with anger, having a hard time getting past the anger and figuring out what your life would be like without the anger. But that's still kind of the wrong wording to be used. What's beyond? What's the 180? What if it wasn't even a thing? So we're not even going to use anger. What if I remove anger completely? What does that leave me with? Where could I go if that's no longer an issue? That's usually the first really big friction point that people have a hard time sitting with and kind of working through. So with the sound energy dynamics, there's the letting go of your sandbags as you get tuned and your chakras and your energy is getting fine-tuned again, and we're releasing all the baggage and tuning the piano. I've found when I'm able to incorporate some goal setting, it really enhances the session. As we can talk about common language when we're talking about the tuning fork sessions is this is your life. Your life is all the stuff inside this cup of life. And when you get tuned and everything is aligned and clear and the windows are washed, we take that cup and we turn it upside down and everything is out and you're starting fresh. You're starting fresh. Well, it's kind of really nice to have and already be in the frequency or working towards it of what do you really want in a positive framing. Because now that's when they leave the room. When you're all tuned up and you head out, you're already in the mind frame and you're thinking of what you want that is super positive. You've built the state you want to be in. Now, instead of seeing blue everywhere, you can see the red. You can see what you're wanting. But a lot of us are walking around and we're not seeing and looking for what we really want. We're continually looking around and seeing the state that we're in. So that's a lot to think about. how we constantly are choosing our state of being every moment, every day. It's like the double slit experiment. It only picks its one slot when it's observed. Otherwise, it's limitless possibility. We could bring inner light and inner sound into this practice as well. But you figure out you're a little bit stuck, you're needing a little bit of support in your inner dialogue, you're noticing a voice that may not be so nice. If you can kind of hone in on what that voice is really trying to say, or acknowledge it, and then notice what that's doing in the body, how it's making you feel. Maybe it's a pain, maybe it's an emotion, maybe it's a mental state. And then be like, okay, this is what we're going to turn around right now. And then you go, what's the 180 of what I'm feeling right now in the best possible outcome? And I find that is usually the wording that helps my clients get there the fastest. It kind of cuts through the chase. It's like, what is the opposite? We're going to leave this all behind. What's the opposite? And what would that give you? Sometimes it's hard to think of what the opposite is. But when you think of not having that nagging voice or the critical inner voice, or it's like, what would that opposite be? Or how it's making you feel, or just a state of being. Maybe it's not an inner voice at all. Maybe it's just a state of being. Or a pain. It could simply be a pain too. Sometimes it's very interesting to see what changing your state and your frequency and your mind frame will do for your body, physically. Like let's do an example. When you are feeling a little bit down, you got a lot of worries, your shoulders start to go down, your head goes forward, it's hard to stand up straight. Or you feel like you're just stuck. Maybe your knees hurt because you can't move forward, your ankles are stuck, you're stuck in the mud. Or hips are the foundation for the body. So if you feel like something foundational is changing and shifting, and then there's the pain. It could be foundational career, relationship, personal, it doesn't matter, or stuck in either of the ways. Go through that process. What's the opposite? What would that give me? Keep pushing through. If I had that new beautiful state, if I was in that, where would that take me? What's the step beyond that? And then you keep going as far as you can. Here's a little secret sauce. For most people, it ends up being calm, peace, and freedom, or one of the three. Calm is the only emotion without emotion. If you have anxiety, that's in the future. If you have fear, you're living in the past. You only fear things you know, and you're anxious about things you don't know. So when you can have that inner stillness of calm, inner light and inner sound is a lot easier as well. And that inner stillness is just fantastic. But we're human, so we go up and down just like a sound wave. What this practice can also do is, instead of having these big up and down, now you're able to start to smooth it out. It's just like any other healing journey, or when I'm working with people, I'm like, I don't know how you're going to feel after this balance. You could go really good, or you could feel really tender and sore. Feel like you got hit by a bus. I don't know which way it's going to go. But after a while, it's going to start to level out. And as we keep going, there won't be such a huge shift. It'll kind of feel like a bit of a plateau in the fact that it's not such a huge dramatic change. And it kind of starts to feel the same way when you integrate this daily practice of intention and goal setting. It's as the farther as you kind of go through the onion layers and you kind of start to get to what do you really want, you get to a really good goal. That's something you can kind of keep coming back to. And there's your long-range target. And it's little changes, consistent little changes every day have huge long-term effects, just like everything else. And you're dropping a little sandbag here, and you're dropping a little sandbag there, and you're able to start floating. And just to bring back to the tuning fork sessions, when we've talked about their intentions and what do they want, a really good measure is just to ask them how attainable do you think that is, or how aligned do you feel with that state of being or that goal. 0 to 10, like I'm a 3 out of 10. I have a long ways to go. Like, it doesn't really feel achievable or doable. Then after the tuning, ask them again, where are you at? Oh, it feels really good. It feels really easy. I'm actually really excited to go do this thing, whatever it is. That's a very common result. And because, when you're freshly tuned, you have a new set point in time, to use Christopher's words. And with that new set point in time, they have achieved a frequency. And now, if they're very aware and they feel very aligned with where they want to be, it really brings it into the present moment, as if it's, as it's there. Now, once you achieve something once, you can achieve it again. Real world look at that is Olympic athletes when they are going and they break a world record. It could be a record that stood for years, but as soon as somebody breaks that record, now it seems like almost everybody can go and break that record. Kind of the same thing as if you're a light in the darkness, you inspire other people to be a light. By you going ahead and doing the thing, it helps give other people permission to go ahead and do the thing. And some of the hardest stuff is getting through to people's conscious mind and helping their conscious mind drive the bus a little bit better. And when they're aware and they've done the exercise to figure out what they really want, that really makes their eyes just light up. There's that light bulb effect that just goes off. And then you look for that sparkle. And when they hit that sparkle, there's usually an emotional release. There's usually some tears. And it's like, yeah, that sounds really, really good. Now they're going out and back into their day-to-day, and they're looking for that. I had one person, she came back and said, I know you told me my life was going to rearrange around me because I changed my state, I changed my frequency. She's like, I wanted to believe you. But then it started happening right away. Somebody held the door open for me. My kid came up and helped me with the groceries and said thank you and smiled and was a joy to be around.
rather than coming home to this stressful home situation. And then strangers were, she was seeing all the better things. And she's like, it happened once, okay. But then it just kept happening in the same day. And then it continued to happen in the following days. She's like, and it lasted for like a good month. And even still, when she came back, and this isn't just one person, this is a common result. They're no longer, they did not go back to how they were when they first came in. There's a new layer. There's a slightly fine-tuned goal. You know, they're starting to make some adjustments. Maybe it's not so much career and now it's a relationship, or maybe it's a personal, how you feel about yourself. So as you kind of work through the things, it's like, okay, just moving piece by piece. Every little micro adjustment goes a long, long way. And if people journal, you can write down your intention, you can write down your goal, and you can write down the flow of the exercise. Okay, what's the 180 from this? What would it give me? What are things that would happen around me? How would I be interacting? If I had that, what would that give me? What state would that lead to? You keep doing that same exercise, and it's very healing as you're starting to have, you start to get through more. You start to really anchor in that state, and then you'll notice those inner voices, that inner dialogue, it changes, especially if you add the tunings on top. For my clients as well, we do the kinesiology balancing, so we're balancing the meridians and we're working with the body. And then I do the 10-minute car wash, or I'll do the full hour tuning on top of that. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a principle or an idea called Johari windows that's taught in the Touch for Health program that I teach. And it's a specialized kinesiology that was created for everybody. So I took it when I was 12. And there's this thing called Johari windows. So you have a square with 4 squares in the middle, so you got it separated. You are on top and someone else is on the side. So the top square is you both can see. I can see this part about me, and then you can see this part about me. But if I go down, there's some stuff that the other person can see about me that I just can't see. I'm blind to it, but the other person can see it. If we travel horizontal, there's stuff about me that I know that others don't know. Thank you, love. And then that one square that's left over in the corner, there's stuff that we're both blind to. I can't see that about me, and you can't see that about me. And I find that going through this process, especially for a self-practice, is it helps you kind of get more into that unknown, rather than just going through the daily mental ruts, the daily thinking, the daily, I have this pain, I have this stress, I have this state of being. So being able to take that step out, stop, and not just meditate, which is still very helpful, or find the inner light, inner sound. It's a great starting point, because it helps you recenter. And you're like, okay, what's the flip side? What's the 180 to this? And then you can if you do body work or craniosacral or tapping, EFT, or this is very applicable in all kinds of ways. All kinds of ways. So that's the long range goal. And short term are great goals too. It is nice to have your long term, what you're looking for. Short term goals, that's a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and within a time frame. So that's kind of like the rungs on the ladder. You can have your SMART goals that are, each one's a bit of a rung. Where the top of the ladder, that's the long range goal. And then it's a really nice dopamine hit. It's a nice feeling of accomplishment when you can achieve a SMART goal, a short-term SMART goal. And it's very reaffirming for our brain that we made progress. Oh, so talking about keeping your conscious brain a bit more on track. I take good notes in sessions, especially for like what the goal was and what the priorities and kind of what some of the issues were. To kind of, if the person comes back and they're kind of stuck in their issues again, I will remind them, okay, you came in last time for this. How was that doing? Oh, that's better. And that little interruption to their daily rut of what the issues are, whatever the issues may be, their stories, getting caught up in their stories. Wow, that part of the story is no longer there. It's no longer applicable. And it kind of reminds the brain and the body that this is possible. We did that. And then it's easier and easier and easier and easier to keep going ahead and doing that. But that's with some regular work. The client, is only coming in once every 6 months or a year or one time, that doesn't work out so well. That's where it's nice to have the time to explain this as a daily practice instead of just something to happen in a session. And then if you're having a hard time getting through the process, you can kind of describe the process to somebody and almost get them to put you through it, because sometimes it's just verbalizing it rather than just doing an internal work. It's easier to kind of skip over the little, gloss over some points when you're doing this as an internal dialogue. But when you're talking to somebody and you have the opportunity to talk through it, that can be very beneficial. And for most of the time, when I'm working with people, I'm not putting words in their mouth. I'm just asking, what do you want? What's the opposite? What would that give you? And then them talking through that is a big balance all by itself. Then they often feel pretty good. They feel a lot better. And then when we go do the tuning, they've already started letting those sandbags go before we even get started with the tuning. And that's pretty cool. Or the balancing or the body work, it really doesn't matter. They're already looking for the best things that they want in life. That's a beautiful space to be. All right, I'll open up the chat if anybody kind of wants to either work through a little bit of a goal or ask any questions you may have or clarifications. I did record this. I hope I recorded this. I think I did. All right, I'll take that as a no. The daily rot. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. And for everybody watching the replay, you can find me on the Emissaries of Light, Courtland Smith, whitewolfholistics.com. If you want to reach out, learn more, I'll look for it. All right. Have a great night, everybody.